Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's Friday again, and this time it's Parashat Ki Tezte. The phrase Ki Tezte comes from the opening pasuk of our parasha, Ki Tezte le'milchama al oivecha. When you head out to war, when you leave for war against your enemies. And this phrase actually appears first in the previous parasha, in Parashat Shoftim, where we find in the Shishi of Parashat Shoftim, Ki Tezte le'milchama al oivecha. And the question is, why is there a repetition of this statement? And I would like to propose a brand new interpretation of this statement. One leaves to war twice. One leaves to war, really, when leaving to war, and unfortunately my generation knows this, you are leaving from place X and arriving in place Y. One is going from the normality of the home, of the family, of jobs and shopping and kids and diapers and all of the mundane day-to-day elements of life. You are leaving, ki tetse. One steps out of that universe, and then one arrives la milchama. One arrives in the world of war. Now, the world of war can be very, very, very aggressive and very, very intense, but there's also an element of the world of war being boring. This is one thing that people don't often know about the army. The army is very often, waiting for things to happen, or patrolling while nothing happens, or standing guard, very, boring guard duty at 2:00 in the morning, when hopefully, and most of the time, 99% of the time, nothing happens. But there is a certain underlying stress, underlying tension, underlying readiness, where there's a kind of slight spike in your adrenaline, where you are no longer at home. You are now at war. And I want to take a closer look at these two different mentions of war and what happens in each. In the one in the previous parsha, we see Ki tetse le'milchama al oivecha. When you head out to war against your enemies, V'ra'ita sus v'rechev am rav mimcha, and you see that there will be horses and chariots and multitudes of people, maybe even more than you. Lo tirameh, do not fear them. Ki Adonai Elohecha imach, because Hashem your God is with you. Hama'alcha me'eretz Mitzrayim, He who took you out of Egypt, implying He has done miraculous things, and He will do miraculous things here too. And when you're about to actually engage in battle, and there's a whole speech that the Kohen, known in the halachic corpus as the Kohen Mashuach Milchama, this is the rousing speech that the priest gives as the people are about to engage in battle, and saying, go and you're going to do great, and do not fear, and God is with you. Right? Let's just read a few lines. Listen to me, you guys are heading to war. Do not be afraid, do not be scared. This, by the way, is a phrase that we have brought into our prayer for the soldiers, right? Because God is going before you, He will fight for you, and He will defeat your enemies, and so on and so forth. Maimonides, the Rambam, very famously says that when one goes to war, when a man goes to war, he should put all thoughts of his family aside. Remove them from your mind, and now focus. Focus on the task ahead. Do not be scared. Do not constantly think about the ramifications. What happens if I fall in battle, or if I'm wounded, whatever it is. You have to commit yourself fully to the battlefield. And that is something which is incredibly hard to do in the modern world. First of all, because the battles that we fight are so close to home that in essence, we're constantly, able to pop home, to go back to the front, and especially if you live close to wherever you're serving, as I did for most of the war. I remember once I even had the opportunity to prepare for a mission, go home, put the kids to bed, do the dishes, and then go back to my base for a 2 o'clock in the morning night raid on a terrorist house. So you really, home and the front are very much intertwined, and Israel's not very big. Even if you're serving far away in Lebanon, you're still only half a day's drive away. Unlike potential deployments of other armies that are halfway across the world, the home and the front are very close. But there is something to be said for this, that when you are in the battle, when you are in the realm of war, of the military, of the army, of the base, of your soldiers, of your comrades, of all of the things that you're in, you are outside the bubble of home. But the second Ki Tezte milchama in our parasha brings the war back home. Here it says, Ki Tezte milchama elevecha unetano Adonai elecha be'adcha v'shavita shivyo. What happens when you win the war? What happens when you're still in that bubble, but now you've got to deal with the enemy population? The Torah here approaches a very, very complex situation, which today, Baruch Hashem, is quite foreign to us. In the ancient world, when you defeated the enemy became yours. Winner takes all. It was a zero-sum game. If you defeated him in battle, then everything that he owned is now yours, including his house, including his territory, including his money, and including his family. And the question is, what do you do? How does an army behave in victory? And this is the major question I think that the Torah wants to delve into. And beautifully, the Torah says there are guidelines. You cannot just rape and pillage your way through the enemy territory. You have rules. You have to go through a bunch of hoops before any of this stuff can really belong to you, especially the enemy's family. Eshet Yafat Toar, if you want to marry a woman that you find among the hostages, among the captives, you have to do X, you have to do Y, and if it doesn't work out, then you have to let her go. Not only can't even sell her on to some slave owner or somewhere. No. The point here is to try and, to a certain degree, wean the person back to regular life. Now the war is over. You now need to start retracting back into normalcy. You can't behave like the animal that you were on the battlefield. When you're on the battlefield, your energy and your adrenaline and your heart rates are through the roof. It's kill or be killed. It's fight or flight. But now we need to start to learn how to behave. Throughout the ancient world, and not even the ancient world, even today, unfortunately, in some areas of the world, when soldiers win, when they defeat the enemy, they are sometimes let loose. And then all of that pent up tension and fear and anger and all of the animal instincts explode in a orgiastic explosion of violence and destruction. And the Torah says, no. Indeed, Ki Tezte milchama elevecha. You have left. You're no longer in civilization. You are now in the field. The field is where the animals are. The field is where animalistic behavior rules supreme. And yet, no. And beautifully it says, in order for you to, if you do want to go through with this, it says, Veheveta el toch beitecha. You have to bring the battlefield back home. And guess what? Say Chazal, it's not going to work. And you're going to realize soon enough that, yeah, maybe on the battlefield with, kind of energy running high, you feel X. But the minute you're back home and your wife is there and your kids are there and you're going back to your job and your mundane life, all of this nonsense, all of this, everything, it's not relevant anymore. And then it says, let it go. Release. Part of the challenge of my generation is how to come back from war. We could go on throughout the rest of the parasha. There's all sorts of different elements that I think are very much relevant to this. The whole idea of recognizing that a dead body, if someone is executed for a crime, then you have to bury the body because there's a human being, even in the most horrible situations and tragedies, one has to treat human beings with respect. There's an element of hashavat avidah, of returning something that is lost. A lot of people, Baruch Hashem, I am not among them, but a lot of people have come back from the war, and they're still trying to return to normality. Whether it's wounded who physically are slowly recovering, whether it's people who are wounded mentally, a lot of post-trauma, and Baruch Hashem, things heal. Things will heal, and we will try and help those that need the help that they can get. And there are a lot of hotlines I refer people to look up, and there's lots of people and organizations that can help. But the beautiful thing about Ki Tezte milchama is at the end of the day, you have to come back home. It's one thing going out to war and leaving the home for war. It's another thing leaving the war on the battlefield and coming back home. So this week, I'm sending a shout out to all of those who are having trouble bringing the war, leaving the war out there and bringing themselves back home. Be'ezrat Hashem, we all have a tefillah. May there be a refuat hanefesh v'refuat haguf. May these people get the help that they need. Unfortunately, one of the soldiers committed suicide this week because he couldn't deal with the post-trauma. Be'ezrat Hashem, it's something that we need to be aware of, something we need to send out and embrace these people. Be'ezrat Hashem, they will all end up returning back to us fully in soul and in spirit. Shabbat Shalom.